The good news is we're all in this together. And when we see we're together, we can work things out. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week again with me, George Harvey, and the amazing Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
In the flesh. Philanthropist.
World traveler.
World traveler. That's right. Expert at many things. Every day I go through the news looking for items that relate to energy and climate change. And when I find such a thing, I produce a 50 or so word synopsis with a link to the original article, and I package 10 to 15 of these together with photographs that mostly come from the articles, nearly all from the articles.
Here we go. I'm having trouble with this mouse.
You are? Okay.
I think I'm all right now.
This is how we start a show. Anyway, when I get 10 to 15 together and have covered the previous 24 hours, I package them into a post that goes to my website, which is called geoharvey.com, GeoHarvey.com. And we will start this show with items from the 23rd of August, which was a Thursday. Today being the 30th, we always work starting a week before. And if you want to check these out, you can go to geoharvey.com, click on the calendar. We'll try to keep you up to date on the date of the article that we're talking about, and you can read the article as it appeared in the news, hopefully.
Well, some of them are well worth following up.
Yeah.
I'll try and remind you if it's a good one. Like the first article coming up is one of them.
Yes, it is. And
it's
it
a very
really,
interesting article
really
from the BBC.
Yeah, it doesn't relate directly to energy, but it has something to do with climate change.
Certainly has something to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shall we start?
We will start. And the first article, the one that Tom was just talking about, is from the BBC, and it has a photograph.
Our forgotten crops, the future of food. And let's get that picture
Let's
up
get
there.
the picture up. It's a pretty picture. It looks like a painting done by somebody. It's the kind of thing that I would have thought, I don't know, one of those great artists would have done.
Wyeth, maybe?
Wyeth.
Yeah.
I was thinking Andrew Wyeth.
Yeah.
But of course, Andrew Wyeth didn't do stuff from the Midwest, but there you have it. So.
Well, you drive or take a train through the Midwest and you see a lot of these things.
Lot of that, yeah.
So the title is Our Forgotten Crops, the Future of Food.
Just 4 crops, wheat, maize, rice, and soybeans, provide 2/3 of the world's food supply. Since scientists in Malaysia are trying to change that by reviving crops that have been relegated to the sidelines. Crops for the future, researches crops that are virtually unknown outside their home regions.
Which is kind of a shame, because I'm sure some of these are really good crops.
Yeah,
you know?
and actually, if you think about it, it's not just a matter of climate change, changing what we can grow in some place. When you start getting into monocropping and well, you think of
monoculture, it's not a good thing.
Irish potato famine happened because all those potatoes were, there they were, and they were all related, and all you had...
All one variety.
All one variety. Apparently, there were just 2 plants that were ancestors to all of them. So they all had the same problems, and when one of them died from a virus, they were all equally susceptible. They all died off. And, I've been working on this at home, planting things that people don't normally plant.
Yeah, you've got some weird stuff growing.
Well, we had our first figs.
Your what?
First figs.
Oh, I thought I said pig.
We have fig trees, and I've got 6 of them right now, all in pots. The largest ones were about 2 or 3 years old when I bought them, and they were about 2 feet tall. Now they're about 4 feet tall. I've only had them for a couple of months, but they're bearing.
Bearing already.
They
Huh?
are
Wow.
indeed, and we got our first figs from those 2 plants. I also planted seeds and got 7 fig trees. I've given 3 away, and I've kept 4.
Do figs grow well in Vermont, or?
Well, these things are growing well. The only question I've got is how are they going to do during the winter?
Yeah, that was right.
Because as potted plants, we'll bring them in. We've done this with other things. We've got lemon, Meyer lemon rather, and lime. Meyer lemon is a cross of a lemon and something, I don't remember what. Limes, calamondins, which are a cross of kumquats and oranges, which, by the way, I would recommend highly to anybody who wants to have citrus, because they're very easy to grow, very productive, and although probably most people don't want to eat the fruit as it is, people who like it, you just take the whole fruit, pop it into your mouth, and go. And it's like a kumquat. It has seeds, but they're very small, and but they make marvelous marmalade. And they're just, we've got a plant that's about 4 feet tall. It's got, I'm going to guess, 200 fruit on it.
No kidding.
This
Wow.
year, and we've had this plant for years. It's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
So those are just part of it. We're growing other things that are not. A lot of people in Brattleboro are growing pawpaws, and we have 3 little pawpaw trees started up, and peaches. We had actually, we had a peach tree that I bought and planted. We've also got 2 volunteer peach trees, but the one I bought. We've got an apple tree, a crab apple tree, the Meyer lemons, the limes. All of the fruit from all of those trees were stolen
No kidding.
by squirrels.
Oh, by squirrels, huh?
Who would have guessed that squirrels would go after limes?
Yeah,
But they do.
who'd have thunk, huh?
Who'd have thunk?
Who'd have thunk?
We have to figure out a way to deal with that.
Well, there's a quick takeaway here.
Yeah.
These forgotten crops are among the most climate resilient and nutritious.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that, I think, some variety of wheat that they're growing in the Arab Emirates
Yes.
that are able to withstand high temperatures.
Yes. We've talked about, actually, yes, we have.
Yeah, so,
And there are a lot of other things too.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just these.
well, there's probably 1,000 crops grown in different parts of the world that we never even heard of.
I bought some flaxseed years ago and put it in jars, and it wasn't even kept cool.
Uh-huh.
And Tori, my landlady, found out I had them and said, yeah, these things have been in these jars for years. They're probably, they should just go into the compost. So she, well, we had a bunch of flax plants growing. Anyway, this is something I would suggest.
Well, this is a good article, as I mentioned. And
Yeah.
the BBC usually does a good job. So
Yeah, very often
one of the
BBC
ones
does
you
a
want
good
to,
job.
you might want to look at. Let's move along to the
Okay.
next one here.
The next one comes from AlJazeera.com.
Why China and not the U.S. is the leader in social power.
Solar power.
Solar power. And also, by the way, batteries.
Yeah, despite Tesla.
Yeah.
The solar panel was invented in the United States, so why is the U.S. not the biggest proponent? Policy. China has deliberate, conscious industrial development policies modeled on those of South Korea. That surprised me, because you'd think as a theoretically communist country, it would not be modeling its policies after South Korea, which is...
But South Korea has been so damn successful.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, really, they came out of nowhere, and now they make TVs, they make refrigerators,
Yep.
make cars.
Yep. In the U.S.,
It's almost hard to buy a car that isn't made in Korea.
yeah. In the U.S., policy supports whoever has the most financial clout to buy it.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah,
That's
buy the
really
policy.
unfortunate.
And that's what we're doing. We've talked about this before, and the one that I keep going back to is BYD.
Yeah.
You've said
Build
many
your
times,
dreams.
build your dreams.
Yep.
Here's a Chinese company whose name is the English term "build your dreams."
Yep.
BYD, and it's a little older than Tesla. It dates back to the 1990s. But even so, it was a guy who started a company in the 1990s, and now it's the biggest builder of batteries in the world.
Uh-huh.
And China The United States has about 1,000 electric buses, which are about 60%
You've
more
mentioned
expensive.
this before.
Mentioned it before. They're about 60% more expensive, but they pay off that difference fast.
Quickly, yeah.
And so we're building about 1,000 electric buses a year. We've only just started. China is building 100,000 electric buses every year.
And we're building 1,000?
1,000. This is a $50 billion a year market, and because of policy dictated by people in Washington, China has almost 100% of that market. And we've barely got our toe in the water.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, more?
Well, there's something in here that I wanted. Yeah, solar accounts for almost 2/3 of the new power capacity globally.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's popping up quick. We'll talk about that again.
We will indeed, over and over again. Should we go on?
Just a little background on South Korea.
Yeah?
It's now the 11th largest economy in the world.
Yeah.
So, well, think about cars,
Yes.
you know.
And lots of other things. Our next item is from Renew Economy.
This is an interesting one, too.
Yeah.
India coal projects cancellation snowballing.
It's hard to imagine anything snowballing in India, but nevertheless. Back in 2010, India's coal pipeline stood at well over 600 gigawatts, a number to have every coal supporter in Australia drooling. Renew Economy is an Australian publication.
Okay.
Sadly for them, times have changed. Since 2010, India's coal-fired power station pipelines saw shelved and canceled projects totaling a staggering 573 gigawatts.
So they had 600 gigawatts, and they've canceled 573.
573.
Now, they made a few more in between.
Yeah, they have.
But it's way down. It's way down.
Way down. And of course, in the United States, how much do we have in coal scheduled to come online? Got any ideas?
I'm not sure there's very much at all because they're canceling them right and left.
Well,
And it's because of economics.
we have had no new coal plants in the last 2 years.
Okay.
And we've got one coal plant totaling 30 megawatts, which is theoretically
I was
being
going to
produced.
talk about, that's going to come up again, and 30 megawatts is nothing.
30 megawatts is nothing. That's right.
There's people
I
around
gotta
here with
admit.
solar panels on their roof bigger than 30 megawatts.
Well, I don't know about that, but not around here. There are people, there are
Yeah.
organizations with that much on their rooftop. Okay, should we go on?
Well, I'm just thinking about what's going on here. Yeah, well, is it, question that comes up from the article, is it the end of coal?
Yes.
Project cancellations are coming fast due to financial viability and low-cost renewable installations.
Yep.
Many of the remaining, just what we just said, many of the remaining coal project proposals are stranded before they're built. Developers are walking away.
Yeah.
It's money.
And
economic.
we've seen some of these. Very often I think about that coal plant in, I think it was Belgium, that it was a big plant and it shut down when it was only 18 months old.
I'm going to say about a year old.
Yeah.
It ran for about a year. One thing about Australia, and this is why they're so concerned, Australia has been providing a lot of the coal to these plants in places like India and China.
Yeah.
A big export market for Australia.
A big export market. And that's one of the reasons why the political situation in Australia is so much in turmoil. Because
It's all about
conservatives-
money.
Yep. The conservatives are trying to maintain the market for coal. And
Who call themselves liberals.
they call themselves liberals. Labor is saying, look, it's hopeless. We've got to stop this and start doing something else. And by the way, there was an exciting article in the news today, which we will talk about next week. They had a big power outage in eastern Australia. Queensland, New South Wales, South Australia,
This
and
is
Victoria.
where most of Australia's population is
This is
located.
almost half the country geographically.
Yeah.
Went down.
I saw that.
And
I saw that.
it was because of lightning strikes.
Yeah.
What happened? Well, in South Australia, which has the Hornsdale Power Reserve, the lights barely flickered because the Hornsdale Power Reserve kicked in.
Okay.
It was isolated from everybody
Yep.
else, and they
A
had power, and they
microgrid or
just
a
kept
mini grid.
right on going.
Yeah.
In Queensland, it was even more remarkable. Queensland has so many batteries in people's homes, they carried the state.
No kidding. Wow.
Household batteries carried the
Wow.
state of Queensland. Now, Queensland is not small. You know, I mean, I think it's probably 3 times maybe the size of Texas.
Is it really?
Yeah, well,
It's pretty big.
It's
yeah.
pretty big.
Yeah.
It's bigger
Now
than
that's the Southwest,
Queensland is the northeast.
the Northeast. Okay.
Everything, the western half of Australia is one state.
Okay.
Western Australia
Western
is one
Australia.
state. And the
Western Australia is the name of the state.
That's right.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the Northern Territories were not affected. The Tasmania was not affected, and I didn't read anything about the Australian Capital Territories. But nevertheless, I thought that was really kind of interesting. We should probably go on.
Yeah, we got to move on. We got a little picture coming up here.
We do. And we have, we're up to Friday, the 24th of August. And there's the picture.
And there's the picture.
This is
U.S. wind sector riding high.
This is from Renews. The U.S. installed 7 gigawatts of wind in 2017 as the average price of long-term power deals for the sector dropped to 2 cents per kilowatt hour. DOE figures released this week showed 89 gigawatts of wind farms produced 6.3% of the nationwide energy mix in 2017, with 14 states hitting 10% and 4 of them getting over 30% of their power from wind turbines. 2 cents per kilowatt hour is
That's pretty cheap, baby.
well, I mean,
Well, that's what they're running these days.
yeah, and of course this is the 2 cents per kilowatt hour is long-term power deals, what they call power purchase
Long-term
agreements.
wholesale power.
That's correct. And this is the cheapest power you can get in the United States. Is actual long-term power deals involving wind power, solar power, and if you back it up by batteries, you know that combination is really
Lethal.
to fossil fuels. It's going to kill fossil fuels altogether, I think. And I just don't see how. I mean, 2 cents per kilowatt hour. You back that up with batteries, it's still 2 cents per kilowatt hour. and what happens when you look at the prices from natural gas, combined cycle natural gas? The cheapest you can get is about 4 cents per kilowatt hour. So
And I'm paying about 15, right?
I'm paying close to 20 because
Yeah,
I'm getting cow power.
yeah.
But yeah, it's the wind power and solar power. The price of solar power has dropped so that it's
gonna
getting
continue
to be
dropping.
competitive, not with natural gas, but with wind.
What with wind. Interesting, we'll talk about this in a little while. Most of the wind, matter of fact, virtually all of the wind power in the United States is on land.
Yes.
It's land-based.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out, there's nothing special about that.
Well, we've got 89 gigawatts of wind power, and only 30 megawatts is offshore.
And that's
So
small.
It's a little over 0.3% of our wind power is offshore. But if we developed all the offshore wind power we've got available to us, it would power the country.
Yes, we've mentioned that before.
Yeah.
I think just from the East Coast.
Yes,
And the West Coast is starting to develop wind too.
it is.
So the times they are changing.
Yep. And now we have an item coming up that has to do with wind power.
Yeah, it does. I just alluded to it.
Yes.
The U.S. is on the verge of an offshore wind revolution.
Yeah, this is from the Yale Climate Connections. There is no question the United States is a latecomer to offshore wind. It has precisely 5 turbines, churning out 30 megawatts since late 2016. In the rest of the world, offshore wind power is 20 years old and now represents more than 18,800 megawatts.
Versus 30.
Versus 30. Yeah, versus 30. But the United States is poised to catch up, and quickly, despite the fact that we've got people in Washington, D.C. who don't like wind power at all.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
the
economics.
The Department of Energy seems to like it. despite Donald Trump.
Well, we'll mention this for later. It comes up. But
Yeah.
Sweden is going to build 2,000 new wind turbines, and we've got 5.
Yes.
That's 600 times difference.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, oy vey.
Oy vey.
We'll talk about it when we get to Saturday.
Yes. Okay, we've got an item coming up from Clean Technica, and we have a picture here. Wow, that's scary.
Yeah, let's get that picture up
The
here.
picture up?
Come on, guy.
Okay.
Kind of a nice picture.
Well, sort of. I mean, it's pretty, despite the fact that it's oil. What do you got?
It is oil. Yep. Trump. Well, this is what it came from the article. Trump maladministration claims America no longer needs to conserve oil. Huh?
Right. The U.S. has so much oil, it doesn't need to conserve it anymore, according to a memo quietly released by the Department of Energy in support of the EPA's decision to cancel scheduled increases in fuel economy standards for automobiles and light trucks. This is a matter...
This is politics.
Yeah,
This
this
is
is
definitely
politics.
politics.
It's not truth. It's not wisdom. It's politics.
The latest policy position by the Energy Department is that conserving oil is no longer an economic priority for the nation.
Yep.
That's what they're saying.
That's what
Trump
they're saying.
feels that there is some part of the Constitution that guarantees Americans the right to burn as much gasoline as they want in perpetuity. It's what makes America great.
Yes.
But there are still reasons to want to reduce the amount we consume.
Obviously.
Duh.
Thank you. You know, I've been telling you, pawpaw trees in Brattleboro.
Yeah.
Except they aren't planted in pots like the citrus trees and the fig trees. They're in the ground.
Yeah.
And they're
great.
growing in Brattleboro.
I've never eaten a pawpaw.
Haven't you?
No, they say they're good.
I have. Well, it's kind of like eating a cross between a banana and...
A peach.
No, I wouldn't have said peach, but you know, it's very sweet. I've read that only a boy can eat 2 pawpaws. And of course, growing on a tree as it's ripening, before it's ripening, it looks like a small green potato.
Oh, is that so?
When it's ripe, it looks like a large kind of, not large potato, but it's a larger thing, and it looks like a potato. And it's got seeds in it that are poisonous, I've read. But they're also considerably larger than a lima bean and very hard, so you're not going to eat one by mistake. Okay.
Well, we just mentioned Sweden. We're going to mention it again.
We're up to Saturday, August 25th, and we've got an item from Tree Hugger.
Sweden to reach its 2030 renewables target 12 years early.
This is so funny. It tells you there's hope for the world, even with Donald Trump in office. Bloomberg reports that Sweden is about to show how fast the deployment of cost-effective renewables is progressing. By the end of this year, Sweden will have added enough capacity to reach its 2030 target of 18 terawatt hours of new renewable energy output 12 years early.
Well, according to the article, it appears that Sweden will be well on its target to reach its ultimate goal of 100% renewable by 2040.
Yeah.
It didn't guess when, but they're going to.
You know,
they're going to beat 2040.
I've seen this over and over and over and over again, where somebody, some country, some state of Germany, some island, whatever, decides that they're going to go to 100% renewable power by some date.
Yeah.
And then what happens is they instead of achieving it in 12 years, they achieve it in 5 or 4 or 6. And this is what's happening
because of the
in Sweden.
progress that's being made in renewables.
Well, that's part of it, but also renewable installation is extremely fast.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, you can put up solar like almost overnight.
well, in fact, you can put it up overnight if the array is small. Okay, should we move on?
Yeah, we should move on.
We have
got
an item from the Chicago
another
Tribune.
picture here coming
We have
up.
a dark picture.
Aha. It is kind of dark.
It is
isn't
kind of dark.
What does it say there? Coal plant at sunrise.
How do you know it's sunrise? I don't know.
I'm reading it from the...
I know that. The only reason it says coal plant at sunrise is because that's what the caption said in the Chicago Tribune.
Yeah.
Okay, and what is the title of this, Tom?
Amid relaxed coal restrictions, NIPSCO keeps plan to retire plants. And you're about to tell us what NIPSCO is.
I think I could be persuaded to do that. A spokesman for Northern Indiana Public Service Company, which is also known as NIPSCO, the region's largest supplier of electricity, said the utility does not anticipate altering its plans as a result of the Trump proposal.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Isn't it? The plans to retire half its coal-fired plants by 2030 and improve environmental impact. Now, of course, this refers to the Trump administration's plans that would keep coal plants going. And
absolutely. I mean, Trump expects and hopes that the coal plants are going to keep growing. And here's a company that owns coal plants, and they're saying bye-bye.
That's right. And they're not the only ones.
No.
This is happening over and over and over again. And in fact, we'll talk about California in a little bit.
Well, the takeaway here is that the emissions from coal power plants are resulting in health issues, mostly asthma.
Yes.
And
in some cases, death.
In some cases, death. And coal is more expensive than natural gas.
And natural gas is more expensive than wind and solar.
Yeah. So the times they are changing.
They are changing.
We're right in the middle of it right now.
We are in the middle of it, and it's
happening so fast we can't even keep up.
We're seeing history take place. That's what we're watching. Should we go on?
Yeah, the next one is interesting.
This is from NBC Connecticut.
Climate change impacts are already here.
This surprised me. I mean, I wasn't really prepared for the figures here. I would have, I don't know, nearly $1 billion in property value in Connecticut has vanished.
That's
what? Yeah, due to rising sea levels, according to the nonprofit First Street Foundation. The organization found that Milford was the hardest hit city or town in the state, with $127 million in lost property values between 2005 and 2017.
Well, for the most part, Connecticut has a lot of expensive property.
A lot.
And a lot of it is on the shore.
A lot.
And that's what's getting hit.
Yeah, a lot.
That's exactly what this is about.
Yep.
In Connecticut, they found nearly 15,000 homes lost value. Okay, and this is from a graph that's on this website.
Yep.
The mean sea level has risen nearly a foot since 1935.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got shorefront property, and the ocean has risen a foot. You just lost a lot of property.
Well, you know, it's not a foot. You've got a beach that's stretched out like this.
Oh yeah.
And a foot could mean that those waves are coming in 50 feet closer to your house.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, so, it's a foot vertically, but it's not a foot this way.
That's right. It's a long way.
I'm making gestures with my hand, but nobody can see them.
They can see your hand flopping in and out of the screen.
It's interesting. From this same website, there's a map of Connecticut with Tuesday's noontime temperatures.
Yeah.
This is Connecticut now.
Yeah.
The low is New Haven at 98,
huh.
and the high is Willimantic at 104.
Huh.
Now that's not typical Connecticut temperatures.
Well, yeah, that's not typical Connecticut temperatures. We've had a hot summer in New England this year, but
there's been a lot of hot summers all over the place.
There's been hot summers all over the world. Okay, we are up to Sunday, August 26th, and we have another picture.
Got another picture here. Yeah.
This is an interesting item.
What we talked about last week was one of the plants in the Navajo Nation that they're closing.
Right. Yep.
And this is nearby.
Yes, it's nearby.
And the other one was not owned by the Navajos. This one is.
This one is.
But it's much, much, much smaller.
Yeah, and the other one employed about 800 local people.
Yeah, it did. And they're losing their jobs.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, the Navajo Nation solar facility expansion is expected to double power output. Now, they use all of this power themselves.
Yes.
The other plant that we talked about was pumping water down to Phoenix.
Yeah. This is from KTAR.com, which I believe is a radio
I
station.
wouldn't bet against that.
A solar facility in the Navajo Nation is expected to double the number of homes it can provide renewable energy to over the next year. Navajo Nation broke ground on the second phase of an expansion project that will provide 28 megawatts in addition to a solar project in Arizona.
Well, I've been studying this Navajo Nation since we talked about that. It is some of the most beautiful country in America.
Oh, amazing.
There's Monument Valley.
Yep.
And it's all these wonderful buttes. If you ever watched a John Wayne Western, they probably filmed it in Monument
Yeah, and
Valley.
if you haven't watched a John Wayne Western, one
should.
of my favorites is Stagecoach, which shows
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
And yeah, it's a great film. Another one that I really love is what is it called? The long road, the big road.
I don't know that one.
It's about the first wagon train to Oregon.
I've seen that movie.
And
I've
it
seen
has wagons on it. You know, when we were little on television, we'd see wagon trains with wagons, and the wagons looked like they were about the size of pickup trucks.
Yeah.
The wagons in this movie looked like they were about the size of a bus.
Oh yeah.
They were huge, and they showed in the movie some of the things that they had to do. And one of the things they had to do, they came to a canyon they had to cross.
Uh-huh.
So they lowered the wagons down a cliff.
I've seen that
and the
movie. I've
showed
seen that movie.
the wagons being lowered
I
down.
think they lost one, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. And they lowered the horses, and they lowered the
Yeah,
cattle.
yeah.
And at the very end, there's a picture of John Wayne walking through a forest with these trees. And those trees were so big that you could have carved a hole in one and lived inside it.
That was the West Coast sequoias, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
well, I don't know that they were sequoias, but they were huge. Anyway,
I got
sorry.
a comment on this. Is my comment.
Yeah.
28 megawatts, big deal. They just closed 2,100 megawatts.
yes.
75 times the electricity. But
Yes.
it happened to have been located there, but they didn't own it.
Yes, that's right.
The
And
group will work toward projects that provide 500 megawatts of renewable energy for the Navajos
Yes.
over the next 5 to 10 years.
now that is big, and
That's big, and that's
worth
useful
talking
for
about.
those guys. Yep.
Okay, we have to go on. I've been
Yeah.
talking about stuff too much, and we've got an item coming up from Electric Light and Power.
Electric. Okay. Electric utilities focus on power grid work over power plants. This is a good article.
It's
this
an
is
interesting article.
It's a good trend.
Yes. Electric utilities are pouring billions of dollars into a race to prevent terrorists or enemy governments from shutting down the power grid. Russian hackers have targeted the nation's energy grid, but so far they seem to have focused on reconnaissance rather than disruption.
Well, they don't mention it, but terrorists aren't the only threat. The
No.
sun itself.
The sun is a threat, and we've talked about that
Yeah.
many times.
Grids are vulnerable. However, U.S. power companies are pursuing expensive upgrades in software, switches, and wires to enable a much more reliable distribution of electricity,
Well,
which is
also-
exactly what they got to do.
Right. Also, if a person has a microgrid or a town has a microgrid that is designed to be able to withstand, for example, a solar flare, that community, for example, can be powered and continue operating when the rest of the country is.
They call that islanding.
It is called islanding.
Island, yep.
Okay, we have a new photograph coming up, and this is from The Week magazine.
Yeah, let's get this picture up
I
here.
took this because I just love the way that word is spelled, that name. Ísafjörður.
That's about it.
Yeah.
It's a long I, so it's Ísafjörður.
I got it both ways, actually.
Oh,
Okay,
good.
go ahead.
It's a town in northwest of Ireland,
Yep.
of Iceland,
Of Iceland.
not Ireland.
That's right.
And interesting looking boat there.
Yep.
And it's part of the article. Our ocean currents are changing, and scientists are searching for answers. And that's what that boat is doing there. It's a boat full of scientists, and they're trying to study this current.
The North Icelandic jet is an obscure ocean current in a remote part of the world, but what happens to it as the oceans warm could affect all our lives. To investigate it, one scientist is heading into the teeth of some of the worst weather imaginable. Well, I've been to the top of Mount Washington, although it wasn't very bad when I got there. It was actually above 70.
Well, they're concerned because they know that the Arctic is warming. And they're trying to figure out what it's going to do. And the article didn't mention this, but this ocean current that they're talking about, it involves the jet stream.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the cold part of the jet stream that's coming back. You know, jet stream goes.
You're talking about the ocean current.
The ocean current,
not
yeah.
the jet stream. It's the, I forget what they call it. The mid. I don't remember.
I thought it was called the jet stream. But
jet stream's in the air.
In the air. Well,
yeah.
I take it back. In any case, it's what's keeping England warm.
Yeah, and it's like.
And it goes around and it's coming back down to Iceland on its way back. It's a circulation.
Right.
And if it is disrupted.
If the Gulf Stream is disrupted.
Gulf Stream, that's what we're, that's
what
the
you were
word.
after.
That's the word, the Gulf, not
Yeah.
the jet stream, the Gulf Stream.
Well, the Gulf Stream is what keeps England and Ireland and Norway and actually
France,
all of Western
Europe.
Europe mild.
Mm-hmm.
And if that is disrupted, which it could be,
you're going to see a lot of changes.
Those countries are going to be like 15, 20 degrees colder during the winter, maybe more. So it's hard to think of, going from being like Ireland in the winter or being like England in the winter to being like
France,
more northern Quebec in the winter. This is not. It's not good.
It's about on that same level as Quebec,
Yeah.
as northern Quebec. It really is. You don't think about that.
Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, this is about China.
Monday, August 27th, and this is from Clean Technica.
China's electric car sales up 64% in July.
And that was bad.
And that was a bad, yeah.
They've been having, excuse me, this year they've been having increases in car sales, electric car sales, that were over 100%. Now 64%, things are turning down.
Well, they're making a lot of electric cars, but the Chinese are snapping them all up.
Yeah, the Chinese plug-in vehicle market is in summer chill mode, up only 64%. This is a slowdown from the three-digit growth figures of previous months, which is explained by a reduction in subsidies for vehicles with full charge driving range lower than 150 kilometers. Now, what they've done is they've taken a whole bunch of vehicles that are designed only to be driven in cities, the city cars, and they've said we're not going to subsidize those anymore. We have city cars.
You don't have to anymore.
No, they don't have to.
I mean, if you're not driving for 400 or 500 miles, you don't need a big battery. You know.
No. And these small vehicles, we've actually got have had city cars and neighborhood vehicles in the United States. Mm-hmm. The what used to be the Chrysler Gem, and I don't even remember
that one.
what it is. They're used a lot in warehouses, and they're used on golf courses, and they're used all over the place. They have a top speed of 25 miles an hour, and you can license them for the road in most of the United States as a city car, which means that you're not allowed to drive on cars on roads that have speed limits above 35 miles an hour.
Okay.
But there's also a city car, and then there's a third class, which is a full-scale car. And what they've done is they've stopped the subsidies for these really small vehicles. They don't need them.
They don't need them anymore. What's that tiny car that Mercedes makes? It's a two-seater.
Yeah, the
car?
smart car.
Smart car.
Yeah.
Yeah, the smart car.
You can get those all electric, and they're but they're not neighborhood vehicles. They can go on the highway.
They can go on the highway, but
they're not.
There's sense
expensive.
behind it because most people drive their cars alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And
Typical family with kids needs a bigger car.
Yep.
But they don't need it to go to work in the morning.
That's right. Okay, we are up to an item from the Johnson City Press.
And we got a picture coming up.
We do.
Yeah, let's get that
This is
picture up.
solar panels in Tennessee. At least I think they're in Tennessee.
Well,
They're in territory that is run by the TVA.
TVA. So they're very likely to be.
They might be in Georgia or Alabama, but they're, TVA is Tennessee Valley.
Solar is looking bright, and that's in quotes. It's
Yep.
sort of a pun, isn't it?
Yes.
For the Tennessee Valley Authority.
TVA officials say renewable energy is an important part of the public utilities' long-term business plan. In particular, solar power is becoming a major part of TVA's sustainable energy strategy. A spokesperson also added that TVA will not be going back to burning coal. Thank you very much, Donald Trump.
That's pretty interesting, really. That really is pretty interesting.
TVA is a big organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Should we
I
go
think
on?
it's the largest public utility in America.
It might be.
I think it is.
Should we go on to the next one and talk about the two of them?
Well, this is also TVA.
It is. That's
So
why. I
let's
suggested
go
that.
right. Let's move
Our
right
next
along.
item comes from the Chattanooga Times Free Press.
Chattanooga.
Chattanooga. That's right.
Trouble in Paradise. TVA studies whether to close more coal plants. By the way, that word paradise there is a pun.
Yes,
One of the coal plants is named the Paradise Plant.
that's right.
And I'll mention that because it'll probably ring a bell. But let's get down to it.
Okay. The Tennessee Valley Authority, which has already shut down more than half of the 59 coal-fired plants it once operated, has decided to launch a new study to determine whether it also may close its Paradise and Bull Run coal plants in Kentucky and Tennessee.
Well, the Paradise Plant was sung about by John Prine,
Okay.
the folk singer,
Yeah.
and that was the name of it, Paradise. That name of
Okay.
the song, and I remember the song. So I'll read the chorus.
Yeah.
Daddy, won't you take me back to Muhlenberg County, down by the Green River where Paradise lay? Well, I'm sorry, son, but you're too late in asking. Mr. Peabody's coal train done hauled it away.
Yeah, there you go.
I remember that song. I definitely remember that song.
Yep. Okay, we're up to Tuesday, August 28th, with an item from Clean Technica, and we have a photograph for this too.
Yeah, we got a picture.
Weird looking picture, but it's easily explained.
Well, yeah, well, we got it up there. That's a solar project, but it's not solar photovoltaic. It's
Correct.
solar thermal.
That's right.
And there's two different kinds of solar thermal. We've talked about one where there's a great big tower,
Yep.
and all these mirrors aim on the tower.
Yep.
Well, this one, they're parabolic troughs,
Yep.
and they aim on a pipe that's right in the middle of the trough.
Yep.
And the beautiful part about it is there's no moving parts.
Yes.
You know, once you lay it there, you know that the sun moves across the sky, and the parabolic trough concentrates the sun on that pipe, which they then use to boil water and make power in a conventional way.
Well, there's other things that they use the pipes for. One of them is they're heating up other liquids.
Well, yeah. Well, ultimately, it's water.
Water, ultimately, it is water. Yes, it's used to boil water. Water is amazing stuff, especially its characteristics in regard to heat. So, do we have a title for this?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, just a little bit. My computer here, that is my problem, but it's supposed to be in bold.
Okay.
And in here, what you're going to say is in bold.
Oh, no.
So BNEF, which you will tell us what it is.
Yeah.
2018 report. Renewables surge, China dominates, coal loses, EVs soar.
The Bloomberg New Energy Finance 2018 report, BNEF is Bloomberg New Energy Finance, peers into the future to predict how the world energy markets will change between now and 2050. There is much good news. It says falling prices for renewables will propel them to a 50% market share. I don't believe it. By 2050. I don't believe it. I just don't believe it.
It's going to happen sooner than that.
It not only is it going to happen sooner, but it's not going to be 50%, it's going to be 100%.
Yeah.
I would bet that in 2050 there would be practically no fossil fuel plants running worldwide and practically no nuclear plants running.
Well, the article just about says that. It says wind and solar have already won.
Yeah.
Okay, they give two tipping points in the article. First one is when the cost of new wind and PV crosses the cost of new build coal and gas. Well, that's happened already.
It's happened already.
And the second one, when it becomes cheaper to source from new wind and solar than it is to get it from existing coal and gas. And that's happening.
That's already happening, and that's really important. What that says is, especially in regards to coal, it's cheaper to put up a wind farm or put up a solar farm and use the electricity from that than it is to keep an existing coal-burning power plant running.
Well, we've seen that happening.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you going to save coal? You know, this is
It's economics.
It's a fool's errand to try to save coal, except for one thing, and that is Donald Trump and the people who are doing this are still raking in the political hay that they get from making promises that are unfulfillable. So, okay, there you go. Should we move on, or do you have more to say about that one?
Well, just a quick takeaway. Coal accounts for 37% of global energy production today. And BNEF, which you just mentioned, sees that falling to just 11% by 2050. So from 37% to 11%.
Well, we talked about how
it's
fast...
going to be faster than that.
Yeah, we talked about how fast Sweden was going.
Yep.
One of the things that you know, really was surprising in the last year was, for me, was to discover that the UK has only 6 operating coal-burning power plants left.
Yeah. Yep.
And one of them is closing down this year.
Yep.
So and they're all going to be gone by 2025. And that is not because the UK's government is all in favor of renewable power. It's because the economics of burning coal are just horrible.
And that's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line.
Money talks.
They are willing to put up with bad economics for nuclear, but there's other reasons to run nuclear besides economics, one of which is to make sure that you've got access to certain isotopes that you can use for certain purposes, like, well, not just military, but also medical. But, you know, anyway.
Well, another quick takeaway from here, this BNEF, they see the number of electric cars climbing to 60 million vehicles by 2040.
Again, I don't believe it. I just don't believe it.
Well, it's talking worldwide.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm
it's
saying
not going to
I think
happen
it's gonna
here
be more than
until
that.
we have the infrastructure.
That's true, but it's already
happening.
happening elsewhere.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, China has 300,000 electric buses. I mentioned those earlier. 300,000 of them. They have cities. Shenzhen has no fossil fuel powered buses left. This is a city of something like 12 million people. All of its buses, 16,000 some odd buses, are powered by electricity.
Well, it really makes sense. I mean,
does.
buses are a very good example of electricity.
Yep.
They work very well. And I know we talked about it here. They had a system working in some country where the buses would recharge at the bus stops.
Every time they stop, they get a little bit of a charge.
Yeah.
You know, why are we fighting against this? I'm not, but you know, some people in Washington are. We have an item here from Green Tech Media.
This is this is a good one. Utilities recommit to clean energy in the wake of the Trump administration's regulatory rollback.
After Trump's plan to replace the Clean Energy Plan was unveiled, utilities welcomed increased regulatory roles for states, but they also affirmed their commitment to deploy clean energy and meet emissions reduction targets.
Well, they gave a couple of larger utilities in America, the Southern Company, American Electric Power, for these are some of the largest ones in the country.
Yeah.
And they're all on board with reducing energy and reducing emissions. And so this regulatory rollback isn't having the effect that they expected it was having.
I wonder whether it's going to have any effect at all, to tell you the truth.
Probably not, because economics is going to get in the way.
The Clean Power Plan was never implemented. They're
No, it
replacing
wasn't,
something that was never implemented.
Yeah.
And they're promising people that they're going to get jobs. In other words, they're telling lies.
Yeah.
That's about as... Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, we are.
We have a picture of London. And we have an item here from Clean Technica.
Now that's an interesting picture of London.
Isn't it?
That's not London Bridge, that's the Tower Bridge.
That's the Tower Bridge,
But
which is nowhere near as old as it looks, but nevertheless.
from London to New York, 19 cities commit to net zero carbon buildings by 2030.
Last week, 19 mayors from around the world, including Paris, London, and New York, signed significant commitment to cut greenhouse gases from their cities by ensuring that all new buildings will operate at net zero carbon by 2030.
That's doable.
It's absolutely doable. You know,
Well, from the article, you don't think about it this way. The energy used for powering, heating, and cooling of buildings accounts for more than 25% of the greenhouse gas emissions by cities.
right.
So playing with buildings is a good plan.
That's right. And the technology that we need to be able to fulfill this plan is already in place. It's been years since the first time I interviewed an architect who had designed a net zero building in New York City.
This was in Brooklyn, right?
It was in Brooklyn.
Yeah, we've talked about it.
Yeah, and that was
Well, what's net zero, just to make...
okay. What that means, there's different ways of looking at buildings, different levels of renewable energy or whatever. A net zero building is a building that is going to produce as much electricity over the course of a year as it uses.
Okay.
So it's heated by electricity and the sun, typically. It's extremely well insulated. The ventilation is really good. And they're extracting heat from the exhaust gases that are going out of the building. And
so it's pretty high tech.
it's pretty, well, it can be. It doesn't
can be,
have
yeah.
to be. But I mean, the house that I lived in New Hampshire, which my grandmother bought in 1927 or something, when she bought it, it was net zero.
No kidding.
Of course, all buildings in those days were.
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
I mean, the heat came from wood that came was cut from the local woods. The light came from, well, in those days it was kerosene, so it wasn't net zero, but it could have come from candles and so forth that were locally made, and it probably was when the building was first built, which was in the 1840s. Whale oil was too expensive for local farmers. It was just too expensive, so they didn't use it for their buildings. That was heat and light. You know, what more do you need, really? Cooking, still wood. And when I was there, you know, I heated with wood and I cooked with wood, and I love cooking with wood. That's just great. I don't know why it is, but everything tastes better if it's done on a wood stove. Okay, should we move on?
Yeah, let's move along. We're on Wednesday, August 29th already.
Yep, with an item from Fortune.
Facebook pledges to power operations with 100% renewable energy within 2 years.
Facebook announced that it had set a target for powering its global operations with 100% renewable energy by the end of 2020. In addition, it announced that it is committing to reducing its greenhouse gas emissions by 75% in the same time frame. Now, you know, I want to tell you, I look at hundreds of headlines every day, literally hundreds. I've actually tried to get some kind of tally of what they were like, and every time I did that, it came pretty close to 350. And if you think about that over the time I've done this since 2011, it might be 800,000, might be 700,000 headlines I've looked at. That day, Wednesday, which was yesterday, the day August 29th, I think perhaps a third of all of the headlines I saw were about Facebook committing to 100% renewable energy.
Well, it's significant here because Google, Apple, Facebook, all of these guys have what they call data centers.
Yep.
And a data center is just a very, very large computer.
Yes.
It's one building that's all computers.
Yes.
And it uses a lot of electricity.
Ton of energy. A big data center can use as much energy as a small city.
Absolutely.
And so that's important.
Well, this is an interesting takeaway.
Yeah.
These data centers were responsible for the vast majority of the 2.5 trillion watts that Facebook used last year.
Yeah.
That's terawatts, guys. That's a lot of watts.
Well, there's another thing to consider here, and that is we're adding renewable power, but these data centers, the amount of electricity that they're taking is declining.
Because they're getting more efficient.
Because the electric components that they're using are getting more efficient. And you know, this old thing about Moore's law and so forth, people don't, it's hard to wrap your mind around the numbers. But you know, I've mentioned this before too, the number relating to flops, floating point operations per second. The hardware that was required to run at one gigaflops, 1 billion floating point operations per second, in 1961 cost $157 billion. And an article in Wikipedia says that the current price is down to about 3 cents. From $157 billion to 3 cents.
And it used to be a building, it took a building the size of this building to hold a computer.
Yeah, it was crazy. You know, it was crazy. Okay.
Well, this article is interesting because it's talking about Facebook going 100% renewable in 2 years.
Yeah.
Apple and Google are already there.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Our next item is from the Desert Sun, and this also took up a lot of space in the news.
California bill requiring 100% renewable power heads to Brown's desk.
California took a giant leap toward its climate change goals, with lawmakers voting to approve a bill that would require the state to get 100% of its electricity from carbon-free energy sources like solar, wind, and geothermal by 2045. The bill has gone to the governor, and you can bet your bottom dollar that Jerry Brown is going to sign it.
Well, this bill would make California the second state to set a target of 100% climate-friendly energy.
After Hawaii.
After Hawaii. I was just going to ask you what that was.
Yep.
The continued growth of renewable energy could be especially beneficial to California's inland deserts.
Yes.
You don't think about them.
No.
Which have year-round sunshine, strong wind, and powerful geothermal hotspots.
Yeah, California can provide its own energy.
Oh, easily.
And energy for surrounding states if that's what they want to do.
There's some interesting images in this article.
There are.
There's one of them with wind turbines and solar panels along an interstate, and all you can see is wind turbines.
Yes.
Few solar panels, but it's wind turbines all over the place.
Okay. Our last item is from Clean Technica, and this wasn't all over the news, but it should have been, I think.
Well, we got an image here.
We do. There it is.
Yeah,
a very uninteresting image of a factory where solar panels are being built.
Well, those are solar panels being built. That's we can't talk much about that because we don't know. At least I don't know anything about it. But
what's the title, Tom?
EU could move to scrap import controls on Chinese solar by September.
That's just next month.
It is, and that's the European Union.
Yeah, Reuters reported that the European Commission proposed to dismiss a request for an expiry review of existing anti-dumping and anti-subsidy measures, a move which has received backing from a majority of the European Union's 28 member states. Now, the thing that I want to point out about this, and the thing that makes this really important, is that this is a tariff that is already in place.
Okay.
And the United States is putting a tariff into place because Donald Trump declared a trade war against China.
Okay.
The European Union, which already had its tariff, is not
It was
helping.
about to expire, wasn't it?
Yeah. It is not helping Donald Trump in this. It is rejecting that move.
Okay.
And is moving, or at least that's what it appears to be doing, and it is moving in the opposite direction, which means the EU is
what
going to
they're
be
doing.
Yeah, and they are going to be buying the panels that the Chinese would have been selling to the United States, which is going to support China in this trade war, which is so easy to win. So, next time, see you next time.
Adios.